E-commerce jumped more than 50% over the last 2 years, thanks mostly to the pandemic, of course. But it's not just groceries and laptops, it's also cars, big, massive expenses. BMW is not unaware of this trend, and they are looking to enable sales of their entire fleet while still honoring the fact that they have a massive network of thousands of dealerships. How on earth are they going to navigate that? We're talking to Jens Theimer, who's a BMW Senior VP. Welcome, Jens.
Hi, John. Nice to talk to you.
So, Jens, soon I'll be able to buy a Rolls Royce in an app.
Well, first of all, our intention is to make the customer sales journey and the customer journey in general as fascinating as possible, so as seamless as possible. Of course, in that context, it's very important to make it digital. So you're already mentioning that every channel we are managing has to be thought through from the transactional viewpoint. And therefore, of course, so being an automotive player with nearly 100 years legacy of being working together with physical dealers on our side, with having, of course, a physical product. So our emphasis for the future is, of course, bring in the digital competence of selling, the digital competence, of course, also of kind of positioning the brand in our business. That's what we are into. And therefore, yes, we will be able in the next years to sell cars through the app, to sell cars through the web, to sell cars in whatever channel you can imagine.
Excellent. So I'm guessing it's not exactly an in-app purchase like you might have in a mobile game, but you will be able to buy online and in an app. Let's just pause for a second and think about that because, look, it's the second biggest purchase that most people will make in their lifetimes. And yes, it's happening now. It's not common. It's kind of a crazy thing if you think about it. You're spending 50,000, 80,000, whatever the case might be, digitally in an app, on a website to buy a car. How's that work? How's that feel? What's driving that trend?
Well, I would say it's not a trend any longer. So it's already in the market. So of course we are already having in certain areas people who want to do that purchase journey purely digital, and so far we are already offering that. It's been used. It's out there, and not even since COVID. So there are multiple studies where we can really see that already now a third of all buyers can very clearly imagine to buy a car online. And of course, we have to prepare ourselves together with our retail partners to make that possible. So is it the second biggest purchase decision? Yes, it is. That's very clear. But you always have to keep in mind the people out there, they are not equity rich, but they are cash flow rich. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they are not buying the whole thing and have the whole sum in front of their eyes. We have financial services. Of course, we need to have financial services fully integrated. And therefore, of course, you break it down. And a purchase decision for 100, 1,000 bucks is, of course, easier done than paying the whole sum at once.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's psychologically important. And therefore, I think you can observe yourself. So what are we buying? So more or less in every industry, we are used to do that. And not only in the awareness phase, searching for some things, configure some things, but especially then when it comes to the real purchase decision. So we need to be able to say, okay, here's what we are having on stock. Here's your perfect car based on data. So ideally, we already anticipated who's there clicking, who's sitting there with all the data with the technology, of course, we have in our systems. So we can predict, we can definitely say, okay, with a high likeliness, We are going to propose that those cars are going to be the perfect offers for that person.
Interesting. Now, you can do this obviously as a brand new car brand with no legacy, but you mentioned you have 100 years of legacy. There's 4 or 5,000 BMW dealerships around the planet, never mind mini dealerships. We mentioned Rolls-Royce. How do you integrate that with a business model that has dealerships?
So, first of all, we are pretty proud about our working relationship and our business relationship with our retail partners worldwide. So, they are the foundation of our business and they have the direct customer contact so far. So, for many, many people out there, our retail partners are the main interface to our brand. And of course, I think it would be stupid to give that up because it is, even if there's a huge trend to direct sales, a huge advantage that we are having those contact people out there. And imagine or keep in mind, there are many, many things in an automotive customer journey which will stay physical. So,
Mhm,
a test drive, of course,
mhm.
you can do in the future a test drive in the metaverse. I'm pretty sure that we can offer so fascinating immersive experience, but I see those as an addition. So that's an add-on. Another thing is, of course, a vehicle handover. And the last thing is, of course, a vehicle physically, additionally to services over the air, has to be from time to time serviced. And there are kind of unplanned incidents where a vehicle has to be touched. And therefore, I
Mhm.
think to have such kind of locations, physical locations run by very professional partners on your site, so that stays a huge USP. And we see also brands in the automotive sector who are totally based on a digital purchase journey, on a direct sales model. They are now more and more investing into physical locations as well because they are experiencing probably the world still need for a perfect customer journey those touch points. And I think in that context, it's definitely important. The more digital now we are becoming, we have to do it together with the partners on our side. So it starts, of course, to make it visible. So what's on stock, what's out there. So what are we having on demand? So and to have a price. You can't sell something digitally when you are not having a price. So
Mhm.
that's why, for example, everything in cars already 20 years ago, uh, digital buying in our industry was starting with used cars because used
Yes.
cars are, of course, having a fixed price. Of course, you can negotiate a little bit, but that's not having that big impact as for new cars. And therefore, I think those are the big triggers we have to manage. So in whatever model you are, I see that business model agnostic. I'm pretty sure that, of course, the trend will go into digital, especially when it comes to the post-purchase phase. So talking about features on demand, talking about, we call it digital late sales. So X Factory is one thing. And then, of course, during the usage phase of the car, there are technology-wise lots of possibilities in the future, and they can only be sold direct anyway. So you
Mhm.
probably always have combination of business models. And in that context, yes, absolutely true. We have to take our retail partners on this journey.
I had to smile when you were talking about the physical locations because I recently was talking to the CMO of a neobank. And a neobank, of course, is a bank that has no physical locations theoretically, right? It's an entirely a digital construct. And this neobank just acquired a traditional bank and they were moving into a new area. And they said it's actually important, whether there's an actual branch there or not, to have a sign, to have a physical
Yeah,
location
yeah.
that people drive by
Yeah.
and they recognize. And it makes sense in terms of what you're saying. I drive a Model Y. It's a
Mhm.
little challenging to get service. Let's
Yeah.
just be upfront about that. So you are changing modality a little bit of how somebody might buy a car. What kind of buyer experience are you trying to create? What are the steps and how's that work?
Buying experience, I think, has to be as easy as possible. So especially when it's digital, I think people are expecting that we have the perfect system. So ideally, a one digital front end where you're not being bothered by the complexity of the product. So that's where it's all starting with. So I think, first of all, it starts with the configurator experience you're offering, and the more customer centric your bundles are, the better it is. So things has to be understood. We are working, for example, with one methodology. We call it pre-configured cars. Also here based on NBO, NBA, individual customer data, what we have, of course, when the people are already somewhere in our system. So if it's new people, it's a little bit harder. But we are finding ways also here to predict what people might want to see in terms of what options we offer them. Second step then is, of course, in the perfect journey, that directly we guide the people to what are we having in our system already. So independent from first of all, whether today it's a build to order or build to stock market, I think people are more and more expecting a vehicle which is ready to go in a couple of days, when it's a little bit more complex in a couple of weeks. So we have to keep that in mind. So that's belonging to the perfect customer experience. That's why people loving brands where the complexity on the one hand is not so big that you are getting lost. And on the other hand, where you still have the experience of building your own car and not buying something from the shelf, which is more or less already there somewhere in the system. So when you, for example, we are having a brand in our ecosystem, the Mini brand. So I think we found the perfect sweet spot between having enough options to make your car as personal as possible, but on the other hand, have the full production system behind, where we are using a template management. So where more or less we can exchange to an extreme extent some days before the car is handed over. What kind of options we are putting on the car. And therefore, I think that's the basis for digital. And then absolutely at the end, it's a 5-click journey, something like this, so not more. And then ideally you are ready to go. And especially, I think, John, one thing comes in addition. So of course, on demand, having a delivery to your home, not expecting that people come to a certain place for the handover, but offering at least them as an option to bring the new car or the used car bought online to your home.
This episode is sponsored by Dollar Smart, my creator coin. Buy some to support the show, get insider access, get smart rewards, get your name in my book, or just for the heck of it at rally.io/SMRT. Super interesting. And that's a delicate dance, right? Build my own car, but I want it tomorrow.
Absolutely. That's exactly. So how to find that sweet spot, and maybe also, so building a system where we're not giving up. I think that's a USP, so that you are still knowing, okay, that's a brand who can really build based on many possible combination your perfect car. But it's not a commodity, but it's still your personal experience.
Yeah, and you don't have to wait 6 months for it. I mean, shocker. Let's talk about after buying, because you're making the buying journey digital to a large extent. What kind of ownership experience are you trying to create? And does the digital extend after the purchase? Are you looking to enable service and other things like that in an app and online?
That's one of the most, I think, fascinating points. So our industry was probably very much focused in the past years on on the buying experience, on the handover experience, to make that once in a lifetime kind of experience. But what happened afterwards? So in the meantime, I think the mind shifted dramatically. So of course, we not only want to keep the customers loyal, we want to keep them in our ecosystem, but we want to really create the car always fresh. So first of all, from a technical standpoint, in terms of maintenance, to do everything what's possible over the air, updates, etc., upgrades. But additionally, there's now coming a functionality, a new channel, so where we have the possibility to offer digital services and functions on demand during the usage phase. And that all based, of course, on the combined car data we are having, on the customer data. And at the end, put those two data points together and say, okay, if the customer is in a situation where, for example, a technical feature like a specific active cruise control in an advanced version, for example, would be great for the person to have. We play that alternatively on your app, ideally in your car on the screen. We offer that to you. We explain what's the advantage. We say, okay, there's a free trial period. Try it out. When you like it, you can order that. So that's done actually in less than a minute, and you are ready to go. So the car always stays fresh. That's additionally very interesting also for used cars. So that creates other business cases in the future. Used cars aren't necessarily from their nature old at a certain point, so you can keep them fresh. But for me, even more important, it keeps the customer journey alive. So you have the feeling, the brand based on intelligent data usage is talking to me. They know me. They predict, they anticipate what I should try out, what I should need. And technology-wise, I think, yes, we are having the data points, and more we are also having the functionalities on the car. Some things are pre-built in the hardware already. The rest is software. You just release it. And of course, at the end, you pay per month or you pay per year, whatever. It's an additional business field which is occurring there. It's not to be underestimated. It's very interesting for our whole industry in the future. And we are expecting really a very good portion of sales also in that field in the future.
That brings up a good point, because as you go digital, you have to kind of navigate what I like to call this identity paradox, right? Everybody wants the brand to know them. Everybody wants the brand to know their preferences, to remember them, to never ask the same question twice, even if I'm talking to somebody here and somebody there and the app here and the dealership there. But also, nobody wants to be tracked. Nobody wants their privacy invaded. How do you navigate that?
I think for that perfect journey we are talking about, so that's the basis. Of course, you need the customer data. You have to get on all the consent of usage of the data. So additionally, we have some laws here, some regulatory things. So you need to build trust, first of all. That comes, of course, out of a brand like BMW. So we are used to deal with customer already today in a very trustful way. I think, first of all, from a psychological standpoint, that's a good situation. But of course, here it starts where we see the challenges. So first of all, I think we have a beautiful instrument in our hands, and this instrument is the My BMW or the mini app. Yeah. So first of all, in former years, when those apps were occurring, they were kind of remote controls for your car. Today, those apps are your bloodline to the brand. So we are creating a community system there. Of course, you can back and forth send data from the car to the app or from the app into the car, not just addresses, but also when we talk about transactional things, you can upgrade your car. But additionally, of course, it is not just a transactional channel, it's also an interaction channel with the brand. And I think in that context, not only for power users, when people understood the benefit of such an app, so they give you every consent you can imagine, because that's the magic of data. combined with human centricity. And that's, by the way, also the two most important brand principles in our brand identity. The perfect combination of tech magic and human centricity. That's creating the most impactful system. But of course, we need to explain that. So it's not self-explaining when you are not used to work with such a system. And also here, our retail partners play a huge role, first of all, during the handover of the car, or even before in the pre-purchase phase. Imagine you see some benefit using the app already when you are doing a test drive or getting your offer. So then at a very, very early stage, we are getting that customer data. People understand why. And at the end, we get permission to stay in the system and to work with that data also in the future. That is high level. That's nearly hypercare of customer data and customer interaction. But as I said, that's the foundation for everything what we are having in our plans.
It's another good segue, because as we go digital, it's still important to have some personal relationship potentially as you continue to make it easier for somebody to buy and own their vehicle via an app or online. What needs to stay personal about your experience?
I think even the best digital system is not replacing physical and one-on-one kind of encounters, so experiences. That's why, by the way, we are also building in the future on partners on our site, but also you can enhance the digital journey by of course, very intelligent bots. You can make the journey even better. You can bring in consultants from time to time in the consultant phase. But I think, first of all, people want to get in touch from time to time with real faces. For me, that's very, very clear. And again, now we are coming back. It is the second biggest purchase decision for many, many people. And there are touch points to human beings. I think the trigger points should be set by data digitally. We, for example, have a beautiful system. We call it proactive customer care. So we are already contacting our customers when we see in the data of the car something will come in the next days or weeks. We'll create a kind of check control message. But even before that message is occurring, you should come into the workshop or something like that, or there's a system failure or something. We contact the customer already, and that's always done by a human being, by phone. If it's not so important, it's a push notification in your car or on the app. But normally it's the physical phone call. And then we are explaining why we are calling. We say, don't worry, we are on your side. And there you see the combination is that what probably in the future will create USPs for premium and luxury brands. We were talking at the very beginning about Rolls-Royce, for example, and in that context, I think it's nearly a concierge kind of thinking. So it's your personal partner on your side who is on service at every point 24/7. When you have a wish or when you have a demand in the context of your mobility system. So yes, there are a lot of things staying important in the one-to-one human customer relationship. Pretty convinced of that. By the way, another reason why I'm so clear about our brand principles, our brand values. Also here, human-centric meets tech magic. Only then you have probably the best combination.
I like it. I mean, honestly, when there's a defined flow and everything is operating according to that flow, technology is totally fine. When there's something a little bit out of the box, or when you're just having a problem and you can't figure it out, having a human voice, having a human face is super helpful. Well, Jens, I want to thank you for this time. I know it's late in your day. Do appreciate your time.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it as well.